So the Indiana Fever are currently in good form. They are 6 of their last 9. Well, they've won 6 of their last 8. They've won 4 of their last 5. And to be honest, they're looking like one of the form teams in the WNBA. In this video, with the trade deadline coming up in about 11 days, I'm going to look at 5 potential trades that they can make that could help this team. This is one of those things where I do personally feel like the Fever are going to run it back. I don't think they're going to make any trades, but I do think they need to make a trade to be realistically a serious team. I think they're not quite in that actual contender category. For me, it's like Minnesota, Golden State, Aces, and I still think the Liberty, if they get healthy, are in that category. But I still think the Fever with the Dream and the Wings are in that just below contender category. That being said, let's talk about some, in my opinion, potential moves that the Indiana Fever could make. And the first move is one that is a simple one. It is a really, really, really simple one. It is by trading for Sika Kone. Demiris Dantas and a 2029 second round pick for Sika Kone. Sika Kone doesn't get on the floor. And she's not going to play with Bree Jones there. Sika Kone was the MVP of the Spanish League this year. She is younger than KK Timpson. I think she's younger. And she is a better player. KK does have more upside, and KK will be better for the Fever. I think we'll get more minutes. But Demiris Dantas and a 2029 second round pick, like, at some stage they have to just say, you know what, we actually have to kind of improve our front court. And at the same time, like, she is size. She's better than Van Sluten. She's better than Dantas. I don't think that she's the greatest player in the world or anything. But I do feel like this could be somebody that, if the Indiana Fever do end up making a trade for her, it makes the team 10% better. 10% better. I don't know if 10%, it's not 10%, geez, 1% better. I don't know if 1% is enough to win anything, but if you can make a trade to get 1% better, go get 1% better. This is now a really interesting trade, the second one. And for me, I do feel like this is one where I'm like, I get it. I get it if this is a kind of a touchy subject and the Fever don't want to overshoot their hand, but Aneesah Morrow, straight up for Raven Johnson. I think their salaries are near identical. And Aneesah Morrow is averaging 10.5 points and 9.5 rebounds per game this year. She has missed 6 games in a row for the Connecticut Sun. Some for personal reasons, some for conditioning reasons. She's just not currently playing, and the Connecticut Sun are unironically better without her. They've started winning games. That's not her fault, but obviously her and Rashid Mazian don't really get along. As far as, I don't know if it's personal or basketball, but they like playing Aaliyah Edwards, they like playing Ono, they like playing Griner over her. And even there's times where Reagan Beers gets in over her. Kennedy Burke sometimes plays a 4. His team is overloaded there. Whereas Aneesah Morrow, look, she's not much of a defender. We are seeing here, she was going and playing big minutes, and suddenly it's 9 minutes, 4 minutes. Even when she was playing, she was kind of end of the bench. She would be the best power forward in the Fever. And in my opinion, Raven Johnson's gone out of the rotation. And if you want to say, oh, we're Raven for the future. If you can figure out a way of making Aneesah Morrow a winning player, because it's clear that she can score and she can get boards. If you can figure out a way of making her a winning player, having her beside Aaliyah, and I understand she maybe is a little bit small, fuck it. Her 3-point shot looked like it was falling at some stage. Like, her 3-point shot looked like it was falling. So if you can get that 3-point shot in, you can play her at the 3, especially when you've got a ball-dominant player in Caitlin Clark for the future, or a ball-dominant player in Kelsey Mitchell for the future, whichever way the Indiana Fever decide to go next season. So whether she's a 3 or a 4, she's better than we don't know if she's going to be a 3 or a 4 long term. We don't even know what position Raven Johnson's able to play at the W level. And for one more year of cost control, for 2 years, 2.5 years of somebody who could be legitimately I'm not going to say all-star, but was looking like an all-star at the start of the year, but who could be a really good starter for this team, whether it be the 3 or the 4. Yeah, I don't don't really see why you wouldn't do it. But now we're on to some really interesting trades. And there's one trade with the Sparks. I think the money works out. I think this money works out. And this is a swing. And this is something where it's like, I feel like we're going to see a trade with this player, Rae Burrell. So if you guys don't know, the LA Sparks have had team control over Rae Burrell for years. She is currently, as far as I'm aware, on a minimum contract. But at the end of the year, whoever has her signed does not have team control over her. She's on a minimum contract. She's on a little bit more. I think the Sparks can stay under the salary cap if they make this trade. But she becomes a restricted free agent. And she's going to make a decent chunk of money next year. So, she's going to make $500,000-$600,000. And a lot of teams can't afford that. The Sparks definitely can't. Why? Because the Sparks have long-term deals for Ariel Atkins, Diarca Hamby, and Nekawumke. The Sparks are going to lose her next year. The Sparks are currently 10-15. They are 2.5 games off the playoffs. And they're on a 4-game losing streak, and Kelsey Plum's currently injured. So at some stage, you're going to have to get off these players. For me, if I'm the Indiana Fever, Raven Johnson straight up for Rae Burrell. Rae Burrell comes in starting at the 3 immediately. Sophie Cunningham becomes the Lexi Hull becomes the backup shooting guard. Sophie Cunningham starts to hover between the 2 and the 3. And Rae Burrell can play the 3. It's at the stage now where I feel like because they're so insistent on Sophie Cunningham and Lexi can't play the 2, I do think even a Raven is giving up nothing. And the reason why the Sparks make this trade is you get 100 times better player in Rae Burrell right now. But for the Sparks, they get a player on a cost control contract for 3 more years when they don't have a lot of them. They don't have a lot of good contracts in this team. So what they're going to need to do is, the Erica Wheeler contract is so bad, they're going to have to try and get off that Erica Wheeler contract. There's a good chance if they do want to trade Kelsey Plum, if they want to just tear it down long term, they can get off that Erica Wheeler contract and trade Kelsey Plum and just say, look, we're going to go for it next year. Look, we got Raven Johnson on a good deal. We got off the Wheeler contract. We're going to go and build in free agency. We're fucking LA. And we saw that with the, there's a good chance that the new GM wants to go that way. So in this one, this is a non-playoff team having a player that I can guarantee you Rae Burrell is being shopped. Because there's no point having a contract like this on the books when you know you can't afford her next year and you're not going to be very good. So if the Sparks go and lose 2 more games in a row, they're as good as out of the playoffs. So the Sparks in their next 2 games played a Mercury. And they played Mercury, the Liberty, the Fire, and the Sky. So they have 4 winnable games. If they even go 2-2, it's done. They then go through the fucking gauntlet of playing basically all playoff teams for a while. And Rae Burrell makes a lot of sense to trade. So for me, that's a player I think the Fever should be targeting. It's a player that's a massive upgrade over Lexi Hull. And you might be saying Rae Burrell doesn't play defense. Well, neither does Lexi. Rae Burrell at least can score. She can slash. She can shoot a little bit. I don't think she's anything brilliant, but she's on a minimum contract. Indiana Fever can bring her in, and they're probably not going to keep her next year. And if they do, they have to make a couple more moves. But yeah, I do think this would be an interesting one. Now we're on to the trades where I'm like, these trades right here are a little bit complicated. I don't think the Fever would make the trades, but I really like both of them. And they are both trades with expansion teams because it doesn't look like either of the Portland Fire or the Toronto Tempo are going to make the playoffs. And it's looking like they're not going to be particularly close to making the playoffs. They are fading a little bit. They're fading just like the Sparks. The Fire have the best record of them all. I don't think the Fire are going to hold out. But if you look at the Toronto Tempo roster, there's some good players here. My trade is for Maria Conde. Maria Conde is 29 years old, has been a superstar in Spain for her whole career, is in her rookie year this year, averaging 8.6, 4.4, 2.4 assists per game, is 6'3", can play the 2, 3, or 4, a decent rebounder, a plus defender, should be the best perimeter defender on the Fever, but that's not saying much. And my trade for her would be, because she's a minimum contract and the Tempo do have a few big contracts, You're gonna have to throw in one of the minimum players. So, and you have to make it worth it for Toronto. So Maria Conde in the trade, because again, she's on the same, like she's the same cost control, like flexibility as Grace Van Sloten. So Maria Conde for Grace Van Sloten, the Fever's 2027 second round pick, and a 2028 and 2029 pick swap. So if you're Toronto, you can see the huge upside. If the Indiana Fever implode, you have 2 pick swaps. And if the thing is, the Fever will throw them in because the likelihood of those pick swaps conveying is low. But we're seeing it with the Sky when nobody thought those swaps were going to convey, and it looks like no one thought the swap was going to convey this year, and it looks like it's going to convey. Absolutely looks like it's going to convey, and also with like the Dallas Wings situation. Nobody thought that the pick swaps for Chicago and Dallas were going to convey when they made the trade coming into the 2023 season after being the 1 seed. Sorry, they were the 2 seed in 2022, and they added pick swaps with Dallas, and it became a shit show for them. So there's always a risk with giving double pick swaps, but also for the Fever, if the Fever are confident enough in staying good, you're okay with throwing in these pick swaps because if you stay good, they don't matter. It's basically like getting Maria Conde for Van Sloten and a second round pick, which is a steal because you are getting by a far you're getting a starting small forward who's a decent starting small forward who can slide up and play the 4 as a small ball 4, who is able to hit shots, is able to create her own shot off the dribble, and is able to guard. Like this would be a no-brainer one. And again, I'm throwing in the pick swaps because that's I think the only way Toronto make the trade, because Maria Conde is pretty damn good. And it does give Toronto some flexibility, and a player like Grace Van Sloten has some value for Toronto. And Toronto, I think, maybe take a swing at it because let's just say in 2028, the Indiana Fever come into that season, or 2027, next year, the Indiana Fever, let's say they choose Caitlin Clark over Kelsey Mitchell, and they're kind of struggling a little bit. And then Elia gets injured, and the Fever are out of the play, are not in the playoff. You then suddenly have 2 chances in the lottery to go win that pick, or go get number 1, or go up in the lottery. But I think this would be an interesting trade. And if I'm the Fever, I'm willing to take the risk that you're going to be good for at least 3 more years. Aaliyah Boston's 24. And I would pull the trigger on that one. But this trade, if the Fever pull this one off, it would be monumental. That is the only way I would say that. If the Fever could pull this trade off, it would be absolutely monumental. So, there's a player in Toronto who I think would be an unbelievable fit Portland, who would be an unbelievable fit, in my opinion, on the Indiana Fever, because she is on a contract where she is making $325K this year, $341 next year, and $357 the year after. She is on tiny money for the next 3 years. Like tiny money, as Louisa Geiselsoder. What would the Fever give up to get Geiselsoder? Geiselsoder is a 6'4", shooting big, who is a relatively decent shot blocker, a relatively decent passer for her size. She's just gone out of the rotation. Not out of rotation, like her role has been diminishing. So someone like Sarah Williams has overtaken her in the rotation. Meg Gustafson has been better, even though Geiselsoder started off the year as a starter. She's been a really good player. Another player potentially they could look at with this same trade is Frieda Booner. But I do think Geiselsoder is the perfect player because Geiselsoder is a 6'4" shooter who can kind of play inside a bit. But it allows Aaliyah Boston to choose whether she goes inside out. And you've got a much better shooter than Mo Billings. You don't have the same role threat as Mo Billings. But you do have a much, much better shooter, as much size, and much more calf flexibility. And what would the Fever give up for Louisa Geiselsoder? This is my trade to get off the Mo Billings contract. So if the Indiana Fever want to keep Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark next year, between now and the start of free agency, they have to trade Mo Billings or Lexi Hull. They can keep Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell. They can't keep both of them on Sophie Cunningham. But they can keep Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell, but it involves them trading Lexi Hull or Mo Billings for minimum and for something that is half the price. And it also involves Caitlin Clark foregoing her Epic extension and her being on her rookie deal for one more year. It requires her foregoing her Epic, which, by the way, means the Fever are in the same position a year later. Because if Caitlin foregoes her Epic, someone can just come in and offer a Supermax. And the Indiana Fever then can't afford to give Caitlin and Aaliyah a Supermax, so she's gone. She's officially gone. So, by the Indiana Fever forcing Caitlin to play on a rookie deal, it's basically the Indiana Fever saying, okay, we are losing Caitlin Clark in 2027, at the end of the 2027 season. Caitlin's playing 4 years in Indiana and then she's gone. But you just never know. The Indiana Fever might just say, look, if we let Kelsey walk, we don't have a chance anyway, long term. So we might as well give it a go for one more year. And the trade for Louisa Geiselsoder would be Mo Billings. The Fever give up Mo Billings, a 2028 second round pick, Fever's 2028 and 2029 third round picks, as well as 2028 and 2029 first round pick swaps. So it seems like it's a lot. It really does, and it is. But I don't think people realize how difficult it's going to be to get off that Mo Billings contract and find a competent center who is a competent 6'4" stretch big who is under contract till 2029. You have it for this year, next year, the year after, and the year after. So you have her for 26, 27, and 28. You have her 3 years. You have a much, much better version of Demir Stantis. A player that can start beside Aaliyah or be a actual legitimate bench big, which the team hasn't really had if you want to start KK Timpson. You get off the Mo Billings contract, and it allows you the flexibility to choose in a year's time whether, or not in a year's time, in 6 months' time, whether you want to go all in, as in you could fuck your long-term future, but you're going all in on Caitlin, Aaliyah, and Kelsey for 1 year. You got one more year of that, and then it's over. It's over. You might lose Caitlin and Kelsey. You're definitely losing Caitlin, but if you're the Indiana Fever and you're like, you know what, we think we're so close, we're going to give it one more year, one more roll of dice, it's going to cost that much to get off Mo Billings and bring in a player that can play at the center position for cheap. So anyway, yeah, that is the video. Let me know which of these trades you guys would like, or if you don't like any of them. Other things I was interested in was that same trade package for Friday Booner from Portland, who's an extra year on a minimum contract. Super, super cheap contract. But yeah, that is pretty much it, lads. See you guys.